Hey, what's up everyone? Before we dive in, I just want to say thank you for being here. If you could take 2 seconds to hit that subscribe button, it would genuinely help us reach that 1,000 subscriber milestone. We're building something real here, and your support means everything. Now let's get into this story because it's one you need to hear. It started as a whisper. Shedeur Sanders might be the real deal, but for weeks, those whispers were drowned out by louder voices like Mary Kay Cabot, who dismissed his chances and echoed the chorus that Sanders wasn't NFL ready. Yet behind the scenes, in every practice rep, in every preseason snap, Sanders built a case that couldn't be silenced. The twist? The same media voices that overlooked him are now scrambling to reframe the narrative as if they saw it coming all along. But Sanders' journey from doubted to indispensable wasn't luck. It was precision, patience, and persistence. And now the Browns season teeters on that same edge. With the offense sputtering and quarterback depth exposed as paper thin, Sanders emerges not just as a backup plan, but as the plan. His arm talent, pocket awareness, and leadership are the missing pieces Cleveland pretended they didn't need. But the narrative has shifted, and so has the momentum. This story isn't just about a player finally proving himself. It's about a system forced to recognize what was always there. Mary Kay Cabot went from casting doubt to rewriting history, and she thought no one would notice. Not long ago, she was the one questioning whether Shedeur Sanders was even worthy of serious NFL consideration. She leaned into the idea that he wasn't ready, that his background somehow disqualified him from being evaluated the same way other young quarterbacks are. And now, with the Browns' offense in freefall and Shedeur's talent becoming too obvious to ignore, she's pulling the classic media move. Pretend it never happened. But the problem with flip-flopping in the digital age is simple. The receipts don't disappear. The skepticism, the way she brushed off his accomplishments at Jackson State, the way she glossed over his highlight tape at Colorado, the narrative was clear until it wasn't. Because now it's all about how impressive he's looked in preseason, how calm he's been behind the scenes, how he might be the spark the Browns desperately need. That's not a pivot, that's a cover-up. Shedeur Sanders has been doing the work quietly, consistently, professionally. He hasn't demanded attention. He hasn't clapped back at the media. He hasn't called out the doubters. He's just kept showing up, mastering the playbook, executing in practice, and outshining the guy ahead of him on the depth chart. Meanwhile, the Browns have been imploding in slow motion. They traded away a starting quarterback early in the season without a clear plan. They put their trust in Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who's done little to justify the faith, and now that the offense has become unwatchable, the front office is out of excuses. The decision to sideline Shedeur for this long has gone from questionable to outright negligent, and now that the season's on the verge of collapse, the narrative has shifted. Shedeur is no longer unproven, he's no longer a long-term project, now he's a potential savior. Now everyone wants to talk about his elite ball placement, his arm talent, his leadership, but where was all that praise when it actually mattered? When he was being written off because of where he played, when Mary Kay and others were busy treating him like an afterthought? The answer is simple. It wasn't there. Because for a certain type of quarterback, the benefit of the doubt isn't automatic. It's conditional. It comes only after undeniable proof, after the highlight reels pile up, after the pressure gets too loud to ignore. And that's what makes this situation so frustrating. Shedeur Sanders has always had the traits of an NFL quarterback. He's accurate. He's poised. He knows how to vary ball speed. He makes catchable throws. He processes quickly. He protects the football. These are the same qualities analysts gush about in other prospects, just not when the player comes from an HBCU, not when the player is Deion Sanders' son, not when the media has already painted a different picture. And it's not just a Browns problem, it's a league-wide media problem. The doubt, the condescension, the moving goalposts. We've seen it before. The same talking heads who questioned Lamar Jackson's ability to play quarterback, who acted like Jalen Hurts would be a placeholder, who doubted Justin Fields' intelligence but hyped up quarterbacks with worse tape because they fit the prototype. It's a pattern, and Shedeur's rise is just the latest crack in it. Because now that the Browns are desperate for a solution, they don't have the luxury of pretending anymore. The guy they tried to sideline is the only one who can pull them out of the mess they created, and the media is scrambling to keep up. You'll hear terms like development curve. You'll hear that he earned his shot through patience, that the timing was strategic, but let's call it what it really is, damage control. This team misjudged talent, the media misread the moment, and now everyone is rushing to pretend they were on board all along. But fans remember, the timeline is is right there. When Shedeur was quietly tearing up reps in camp, Mary Kay wasn't impressed. When he dropped precise passes in the preseason, she was cautious. When the Browns began their downward spiral, she focused on everything but the quarterback waiting in the wings. And now she's leading the Shedeur redemption story. She's not alone either. That's how media works when they get caught on the wrong side of the story. They turn the narrative from resistance to we always knew. They paint over doubt with praise, and they expect fans to go along with it. But they won't, not this time, because Shedeur Sanders didn't rise out of nowhere. His talent didn't develop overnight. He's been ready. It's the people around him, on the field and in the press box, who were too slow to catch up. The Browns had a chance to get ahead of this. They could have made the right call early. They could have committed to developing around a young quarterback who had already shown he was capable of leading. Instead, they tried to wait it out, tried to force something that wasn't working, and now they're stuck in damage control mode. Every week they wasted was another week of lost progress, another week of a lifeless offense, another week where fans watched the wrong quarterback stumble through drives while the right one waited silently. And Shedeur, he waited. He didn't make it about him. He didn't put pressure on the team. He trusted that the opportunity would come, and when it does, he won't just fill in, he'll take over. He'll make throws Thompson Robinson can't. He'll extend plays without panic. He'll deliver the ball where it needs to go, and he'll do it without the drama, without the ego, without the media campaign. That's the part no one saw coming. He didn't try to win people over with flash. He just let the work speak for itself. And now, the work is undeniable. So the next time Mary Kay drops another segment praising Shedeur's mental toughness, just know it's not admiration. It's cleanup. And the next time the Browns act like they always believed, know that it took a collapse for them to face what was obvious from the start. Shedeur Sanders wasn't a risk. He wasn't a long shot. He wasn't some media-created storyline. He was, and is, the best quarterback option on that roster. And now that the curtain's been pulled back, the only thing left to do is let him play. When he takes that field, when he throws his first touchdown, when the Browns offense finally starts to function like a real NFL unit, you'll see it. The shift, the energy, the confidence. And then you'll know all of this could have happened sooner. The truth, when it finally hits, doesn't tap politely, it steamrolls. That's what's coming next for Mary Kay, for the Browns front office, for every analyst who said he needs more time, and for every platform that ran with that same tired narrative. Once Shedeur Sanders is under center, it's not going to be a gentle awakening. It's going to be a full-blown reality check, because when you have the right quarterback, everything else falls into place. Suddenly, receivers are making plays. Suddenly, the offense isn't stuck in neutral. Suddenly, the team looks like it actually belongs in the league. And here's what's going to sting for Mary Kay and the rest of them. Shedeur is not going to say a word about the people who doubted him. He doesn't have to. He's going to let every pass, every audible, every controlled 2-minute drill say it for him. That's always been his style. He didn't clap back when they questioned his stats at Jackson State. He didn't whine when they minimized his transition to Colorado. He didn't lash out when they framed his success as a Deion Sanders storyline. He just kept stacking tape, kept showing up in the moments that mattered, kept doing what good quarterbacks do, earning the trust of everyone around them, not through hype, but through execution. And that's exactly what he's doing now. While Thompson Robinson's been flailing behind a disjointed offensive line, Shedeur's been watching, calculating, learning. When most young quarterbacks would have cracked under that kind of media silence, ignored by the team, dismissed by the press, he stayed locked in because he knew this moment was coming. It always does. The NFL has a way of humbling everyone. Teams that mismanage their rosters get exposed. Analysts who don't do their homework get called out. And quarterbacks who were doubted for reasons that had nothing to do with football get to write the ending. Shedeur has been underestimated for the wrong reason since the beginning. The media saw a kid with confidence and assumed arrogance. They saw a famous last name and assumed privilege. They saw an HBCU on his resume and assumed the tape wouldn't hold up. But now the tape is undeniable. The accuracy, elite. The poise under pressure, NFL ready. The ability to read coverages and manipulate defenders with his eyes, veteran level. And suddenly, all the things they said he wasn't are exactly what they're now praising. losing. That's the hypocrisy. Mary Kay didn't say he might need more reps. She didn't say, let's wait and see. She said he wasn't ready, full stop. And now she wants to pivot into admiration like that quote doesn't exist on the internet for everyone to find. But the internet doesn't forget, and neither do fans who've had to watch their teams spiral because of decisions rooted in politics, not performance. This isn't just a story about media bias. It's a story about what happens when an organization ignores the clear answer staring them in the face. When the Browns traded away their starter and rolled the dice on Dorian Thompson-Robinson, they weren't making a calculated gamble. They were actively passing on Shedeur, and now that the gamble has failed, they want to pretend Shedeur was always part of the plan. He wasn't. Not really. If he had been, he would have started earlier. He would have been developed with purpose. He would have been supported with a system that fits his game. Instead, he was stuck waiting behind a guy who couldn't deliver, sitting on a sideline while reporters who didn't believe in him tried to pivot in real time. And now they need him to be the hero. It's wild how quickly the story shifts when the losses pile up. Suddenly, the not ready quarterback is the only hope. Suddenly, the same media that refused to take his college tape seriously is quoting his completion percentages in practice. Suddenly, the entire city of Cleveland is waiting for the guy they doubted to clean up a mess he didn't make. That's what Shedeur is stepping into. A broken offense, a fractured locker room, a desperate fan base, and a narrative that's just barely starting to correct itself. He's not stepping into opportunity. He's stepping into expectation. Expectation that he should have never had to carry this early, but now does, because he's the last option left. That actually makes sense. And yet, he's ready. That's the poetic part of it all. Shedeur didn't need the media's validation to prepare like a starter. He didn't need the team's trust to carry himself like a leader. He didn't need Mary Kay's approval to play like a pro. Because while everyone else was busy writing him off, he was writing plays, reading defenses, executing in silence. Now he's about to speak loudest in the only language that matters in this league, performance. And when the Browns' offense finally looks like it has rhythm, when third downs stop feeling like death sentences, when red zone trips actually end in touchdowns instead of field goals, when receivers stop having to reach into the dirt for passes, they'll try to act like they saw this coming. They didn't. They saw what they expected to see. And that's what this entire saga reveals. Mary Kay didn't evaluate Shedeur fairly. She evaluated him through a lens that's been warped for years, one that's built on patterns of dismissing black quarterbacks unless they force the issue, one that downplays the mental game, the precision, the discipline until they can't anymore. Well, now they can't. Shedeur Sanders is not a surprise. He's a correction, a loud, public, necessary correction to a league that still struggles to assess talent without bias, to a media machine that treats pedigree like prophecy and background like a red flag. And when he proves them wrong, and he will, don't let them pretend they were on his side all along. They weren't. They waited. They doubted. They protected their narratives. And now they're being exposed by the one thing they can't control, performance. And when that system breaks, cracks under the weight of its own bias and arrogance, it won't be a subtle collapse. It'll be loud, televised, and very, very uncomfortable for the people who insisted Shedeur Sanders wasn't ready. Because ready quarterbacks don't just appear out of thin air. They don't go from project to starter in a week. The truth is, he's always been ready from day one. The only people who weren't, the Browns, the media, Mary Kay. This wasn't some slow burn development arc. It was a delay caused by the same systemic patterns that have held back young black quarterbacks for decades. The scrutiny is always heavier. The leash is always shorter. The goalposts constantly moving, but talent has a way of obliterating those goalposts when it's finally allowed to show up on the field. And now Shedeur's moment is here, not because they believe in him, but because they ran out of ways to ignore him. Every throw Dorian Thompson-Robinson missed was another reason to make the switch. Every lifeless offensive series was another red flag waving directly in front of the front office's face. And now, when everything is crumbling, Shedeur Sanders is the only one left standing with the skill and mental toughness to fix it. That's the irony. The same kid who was dismissed for playing at an HBCU, who was told told he needed to prove it more, who got buried in preseason quarterback rankings behind players with worse tape and less consistency, is now the guy being asked to save the season. And you can feel the panic and how quickly the tone has shifted. All of a sudden, Shedeur is being praised for his decision making, his pocket presence, his accuracy on intermediate routes. The same attributes Mary Kay once glossed over are now being treated like they materialized overnight, as if he went from raw to refined in 2 practices. But nothing changed. He didn't change. What changed was the reality surrounding him. What changed was that the Cleveland Browns could no longer fake stability. They could no longer justify trotting out Thompson Robinson when it was obvious the offense had stalled. They could no longer pretend that Shedeur wasn't the best quarterback on the roster. And now they're being forced to play the card they should have led with. It's not a bold move. It's a correction. A reluctant acknowledgement that the guy they overlooked might just be the one who keeps their jobs afloat. But make no mistake, this isn't Shedeur's redemption arc. This is their reckoning. Every throw he makes, every game he turns around, will be a reminder of the time they wasted, the reps he should have gotten, the wins they could have had, the leadership they ignored because it didn't look the way they were used to. And when the media starts spinning his rise as inspirational, don't buy it. What's inspirational is Shedeur's discipline, his silence in the face of loud doubt, his ability to stay locked in, to prepare every week like he was starting even when he wasn't even being mentioned in the game plan. That's not a feel-good story. That's a case study in resilience and professionalism. He never once let the media's narrative dictate his identity, and that's what rattled them. They wanted flash, they wanted quotes, they wanted drama, and when Shedeur didn't give them any of that, when he just kept getting better, they didn't know how to process it, so they did what media always does when it doesn't understand something. They dismissed it. But now they're out of space to dismiss and out of time. Because the moment Shedeur takes over and shows what this offense looks like when it's run by someone who actually knows what they're doing, it'll be obvious to everyone. The Browns didn't develop him, they delayed him, and now they're reaping the consequences of that delay, and that's what should make this so infuriating. This could have been avoided. This didn't need to be a turnaround. It didn't need to be a rescue. If the Browns had trusted what was right in front of them, if they had trusted him, they could have built the season around him, not because of him. But now Shedeur has to clean it up. And he will. He'll bring structure to a chaotic offense. He'll bring leadership to a locker room that's losing trust in the staff. And he'll bring accountability without ever having to say, "I told you so." Because Shedeur doesn't need to say it. His game says it louder. You'll see it in the rhythm of the offense, the timing on throws, the confidence from the offensive line once they realize their quarterback isn't panicking in the pocket. You'll see it in the trust receivers give him, because quarterbacks who throw catchable balls are rare, and when you get one, you hold on to him. And for fans, it'll be validation. Validation that the eye test wasn't lying, that you weren't overreacting, that Shedeur should have been the starter weeks ago, that the frustration wasn't just justified, it was overdue. Because everyone saw it except the people who were paid not to miss it. Mary Kay's sudden admiration won't erase the skepticism. The shift in her tone doesn't cover the fact that she was a vocal part of the problem. And this isn't personal, it's about accountability. Because in this league, media narratives matter. They shape perceptions, they impact careers. And when those narratives are built on bias or lazy assumptions, players pay the price. Shedeur did, quietly, for weeks. And now he's about to make every single one of them remember exactly what they overlooked. He's gonna do it with poise, with consistency, with throws that hit receivers in stride instead of putting them in danger. And he's going to do it without asking for applause. Because the ones who had to fight their way into the spotlight never expect credit. They just take the moment and own it. So as the Browns scramble to salvage what's left of the season, and as the media rewrites its own history in real time, know this: Shedeur Sanders didn't need a redemption arc. He needed an opportunity. And now that he has it, everything changes. If you've been watching this unfold and waiting for someone to finally say what everyone's been thinking, hit that like button. If you've been calling out the double standard and watching it implode in real time, drop a comment. And if you're here for more media meltdowns, team chaos, and overdue reckonings, subscribe now, because Shedeur Sanders isn't just stepping onto the field, he's stepping into the spotlight they tried to keep him out of, and this time, there's no turning back.